What's up, everybody? It's Jeremy Minnick with the Game Changing Roofer Podcast, a show created to share the stories of roofers who are changing the game in the roofing industry. This show is meant to help roofers build better businesses and better lives. Joining us on the show today is a guy who started as a sales guy for a roofing company in Northern Virginia and eventually transitioned to starting his own roofing company in 2012. Over the past 3 years, he's averaged about 3 to 5 million in sales, and his company has been active in both insurance roofing and retail roofing. And he's here today to share his story and strategies about canvassing and sales. Kevin Bailey of American Dream Restoration, welcome to the show. How are you, my man?
Hey, doing well, Jeremy. How are you doing?
Good. Doing well. I know you and I were chatting just before the show, and this is kind of like an intro I've almost talked to everybody about, but in terms of the coronavirus and everything, kind of all the craziness going on and things like that, how have you kind of been handling that as a roofing company? How, what kind of messages have you been sharing with the team? And have you guys seen as a team, kind of any decline in leads, or has business kind of carried on as usual? What have you kind of seen on your end?
Surprisingly, this past week, I don't know if it's, homeowners are bored at home, but we've been getting a good amount of leads online and a couple call-ins as well, which, looking at last year's notes, we didn't have as many, believe it or not. So yeah, I mean, we're getting by. People are still, calling for estimates. I think people are looking at the defects on their home right now, I think things are going to be selling pretty soon. So
yeah, that's awesome. What would you say? Have you guys noticed anything, or are people hesitant about meeting with you in the home, or have you not really seen that kind of hesitancy for the most part?
Yes, I've seen that. It seems like we're getting a lot of not, probably less inquiries than normal, but as far as appointments go, people are more, distant, social distancing and appointments, right. Eagle View, we can give them an estimate online. So that's kind of our option right now if they don't want to meet in person.
Yeah, that's I think a huge thing in terms of like one of the most actionable strategies for roofing companies, especially roofing companies who are not using tools like Eagle View to generate their estimates and aerial quotes and things like that, or who just kind of aren't maybe super technologically driven. That's just not their thing. This is almost a call to action. I mean, sometimes life produces these moments of it's a call to action to it's time to get online. This is where business is happening. And it's not to say it's not happening on the pavement and on front lawns as well. I mean, it is, and it will always be happening face to face with the homeowner. Obviously, there's tremendous advantages to having that, but to not have the ability or opportunity to meet with somebody virtually through Zoom or through Google Hangouts or through FaceTime, and not have the ability in any way, shape, or form to generate a quote through, iRoofing or through Eagle View or any of the other types of softwares is, can be really crippling. And I think it's a great opportunity as well, though, for those roofing company owners and roofing companies who are technologically driven or willing to change with the time to actually honestly kind of eat up some market share. I mean, this is a time you can actually kind of eat up market share, grow your business, and maybe outperform, especially those roofing companies that haven't done that, haven't made the transition. And have you kind of seen at least an appreciation from homeowners about your being able to generate through quotes and leads through Eagle View and through consultation virtually?
Yes, and to be completely honest with you, I'm definitely one that is not on top of the digital of roofing. And you're right, it did click in, and it's like we don't really have any other option. And to see how it works and kind of come up with your own process. Yeah, homeowners have been receptive to it, especially since they actually don't feel I think as pressured into a sale,
right,
as you would say, rather than being face to face. So it's kind of a disadvantage on our side, but at the same time, I think they're more likely to get that quote, and some are surprised. Oh, wow, it's not as expensive as I thought, or oh, you have financing
Right.
and those sort of options. So I think it's neat to see how this did kind of mix up the game a little bit, especially with our company, because my guys will tell you firsthand, I'm a little behind the times as far as, the
Right.
digital side of roofing. But no, overall, it's been a different experience for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Well, one of the things, just kind of transitioning, I mean, at the end of the day, again, this podcast is all about sharing stories from roofing company owners or from professionals and leaders in the roofing space. And so I'd love to just turn it over to you for a second from the standpoint of, what is your background? How did you find your way into roofing in general? What maybe even the farther back story, how did you find your way into roofing, and what led to starting American Dream Restoration in 2012?
Yes. So I would say the initial start towards roofing was I finished a couple years of college, then decided it wasn't for me, wanted to get a job, searching on Craigslist. And I see this ad that says sports minded, marketing. Are you competitive? All these things. I'm like, yeah, I can, what am I going to be, a trainer at a gym or something? So I go in, of course, it's selling coupon books. And so I started with that company.
which
And
which like isn't even a thing anymore. So just in case anybody missed that, that was selling coupon booklets. I don't think that exists as a professional career these days, unless it's online.
it's yeah. But it was actually a very fun environment. They had probably 50 people come into the office every day, had a big warm up kind of speech that the owner would give. And we would go out and we'd sell, door to door. And eventually, a storm had hit the area, and they brought in a bunch of roofing companies that we were to get leads for. And so we did that for a while, for a couple of years, and that's how really transitioned into it. And it was very good training, and definitely, I think molded the company to where it is today. I think we were a very self-generated company. But in that instance, one of the roofers we were canvassing for approached me, and it said, "Hey, you're going to make a lot more in sales with us, so come on board." And that's kind of how the roofing thing started. So
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. And so then you kind of dove into obviously roofing sales. How long did you do that, by the way?
2 years.
Okay. And then what kind of prompted you to eventually transition into starting ADR in 2012?
I think two main reasons were the company I worked for. They're a great company, great training, but their crews were horrific. And time and time again, I would get a call from a homeowner saying my roof's leaked. There's no supervision on the job. There was no quality checkup or anything at the end of every roof, and it was kind of like consistent calls that prompted me to say, "Hey, I got to talk to management." Um, at the same time, I was living with my brother and his wife, and it was my wife and me. And my wife is like, we need to get out of this situation. Yeah, very costly area. So we decided to do my own thing out in Front Royal, and talk to them. And we had a very cordial, meeting with the boss, and yeah, transitioned out here and just implemented those canvassing skills to get it started.
Yeah, that's awesome. What was what did it kind of look like? I mean, just for a moment, almost like what were maybe three of the steps? I always think it's when people are in roofing, whether they're roofing sales or maybe even they're a current company owner of a roofing company, or they're looking to get into roofing sales. I mean, just all these people who are in different stages of the journey. What were sort of some of those like definitive stones that you stepped on to transition from roofing sales guy into starting a roofing company? Like, what were some of the things that you thought about were most important in kind of making that transition? Was it related to mindset? Was it related to practically you had to do this? Especially on the mindset front, like what made that change happen? Maybe sounds like a little bit of motivation from your wife saying, you know, we've got to get a new place. So
That
maybe
was
that's
a huge role.
one.
Oh yeah, yeah. That was a huge role in that factor. Um, but I'd say I think you know one thing that was crucial was like every business owner I think sees is that the company I was working for was not the best. They were lacking in areas that I thought I really could do better. So that really kind of gave me confidence to say, okay, I can bring a better product. So I knew canvassing very well, which um, means I wasn't worried about generating business. I can walk down the street, and what I've learned from these great companies is how to produce self-generated leads. So I think that was key, that I had that in my back pocket, saying, okay, no matter what, I can at least do a roof a week, which will pay for rent and feed the kids.
Right.
That was the main thing. Was I felt secure, and I felt like I could give a better product than where I was. I
Right.
would say were main things.
Right. That's awesome. And I want to highlight kind of like word canvassing. You know, you and I were chatting just before the show began about your sort of, again, the story and the progression of how you became an expert and are an expert canvasser. And so from like the perspective of kind of your background, how you got started in all this, maybe you can just quickly touch upon, but just highlight it as well. You kind of got started in selling coupon booklets. Again, I mean, you were a canvasser of a product that really, like, not attractive, not super compelling. I mean, so if you're able to canvas that and do a successful job, you're able to then obviously see that reality, take that energy and transition that skill into, well, hey, I could do that for roofing sales and selling roofs. And then obviously that led you to be able to do that as you started your own company. So were there any kind of pivotal moments there of when you really started to lock into, this is how to canvas, like this is the mindset that you have to have as a canvasser? And then we'll talk about in a moment kind of more practical tips and strategies for canvassing. But from the mindset, what do you feel like are some of the most important things a canvasser needs to have in terms of their mindset and motivation?
I think one of the biggest ones that I think is the most obvious is you're going to get leads. It doesn't matter who you are. It's all about how, when you're starting, it's about numbers. It's about, how many doors am I going to knock today? How many people am I going to knock today? If I knock people, 100 doors each day, you will get leads. That's one thing I would say is crucial, is that I've seen, people with speech impediments. I've seen, people who you wouldn't expect to be great salesmen at the door turn those numbers into very high quality. 1 out of every 10 spoken to people, they get a lead. So I would say the main thing is just, you have to be consistent. Don't give up, because you really will hit numbers. It's a numbers game ultimately. You get those numbers at better percentages the longer you go, but ultimately,
Right.
when you numbers. So
And you mentioned this to me as well. Maybe you can just kind of share this story. You were up, you said, I think in PA at some sort of roofing trade show or kind of roofing training session or something like that, and you were competing with somebody else for canvassing and generating leads. Can you kind of share that story and what was, again, kind of one of the major takeaways and eye openers from all that?
yeah, I think this was after, I'd say, a year and a half in um, canvassing, and one of the for that marketing company, and one of the roofing companies had paid for us to stay at a hotel. Me and another guy, and so we were canvassing for a storm there, and the first week his name was Jeremy. Jeremy was running 9 to 10 leads a day, and this is fresh storm, so that's very doable. And I kept on getting donuts, 0 every day. Just and then about to give up, and I'm like, I'm going back home. I haven't made $1 this trip. I've only spent money on food and whatnot, and started up the next week, and I'm like, all right, I'm going after it. And the roles completely changed. He was getting donuts, zeros every day. I was getting 9 to 10 leads a day. And I think the story just kind of shows you that in a way it is a numbers game ultimately, and that's what we were always taught, even selling coupon books, which is one of the hardest items to sell, because you're trying to create a value with a free Domino's pizza at their door, for $50, and you don't want to walk away without a check or cash or whatever. I mean, we would go, they would be flipping through the books, and one of the strategies was to literally close the book on them in their hand while they're looking at it and say, stop looking. This is the value we bring, and get an answer from them. So in any event, it in the end, we believe it is a numbers game, and those strategies come into play, and your numbers get better. But yeah, so that's what that trip taught me. But
dude, that is, I feel like, again, in terms of your background in selling those booklets and being successful doing so, I mean, that's like the red badge of honor or something like that in the roofing world, right? I mean, like, if you can be successful selling that, you're a real player. You're the real deal,
okay, I hear.
So great practice for you, obviously, in that front. What are some of the other things, you kind of mentioned one of the strategies was close the booklet on their hand. In roofing sales and in canvassing, what are some of the really practical tips and strategies that you found to be successful? Like, really specifically, what have you found has worked to help increase your your appointment booking rate, your kind of lead quality rate? What are some of those strategies?
One strategy is we always used to have pamphlets or cards, and presenting the homeowner with a card or pamphlet and breaking that ice really opens up the game for the rest of closing that lead. Because we were taught that if they did not open the door, which we have found, or would not take your pamphlet, is you could not break them open. So one of the keys is to having something in your hand. They accept it, and that breaks a barrier that allows you for the rest of the lead. Another closing method is you want to treat them like you treat a child. You have 5 to 10 seconds to gain their attention and to close the deal. So what you want to do is when you're closing them, when you're coming to the end of your spiel, you want to give them 2 options. You don't want to say, hey, would you like a roofing inspection? They're going to say, no, I don't have time. I say, do weekends or weekdays work better for you? Do mornings or nights work better for you? And it kind of puts them in a corner where they have to choose one or the other. And that will boost your closing rate tremendously. Another thing is being, I think, very firm in that you're in control. Once you're talking to them and they have the pamphlet, very similar to how, with the coupon book, we would close their book while they're looking at it. Same thing with canvassing is you want to let them know you don't want them distracted looking at other things. So essentially, you say, my name's Kevin Bailey. I'm with American Dream Restoration. And you see them looking at the pamphlet. Essentially, they say, oh, eyes up here. Or, do you have any water? You can get something to make them do something. If they say, oh, it's really hot out, it's really hot out here. Do you have any water? Don't be afraid to be in control of the conversation.
Right.
So that's one of the key things out there. Now you have only so much time to do it, and you're going to get crazy reactions, but
Right.
it's helpful.